Perpetual hype season. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and welcome to a lovely Halloween special version of spoiler season. Crimson Vow is here. The preview started yesterday with the live stream, and I'm going to round up day one of spoiler season. If you're looking for my preview video of my preview that was given to me, hashtag free preview and all that shit, it's on Monday, the 1st of November. So that's this coming Monday. I'm releasing this on the Friday. 2 days from now, tune in, check out my preview. It wasn't Thalia. Thalia was revealed on the preview stream today. So let's start with Thalia. If you want a full breakdown of how I feel about Thalia being reprinted with another new 3 arts, making it a grand total of 9 just for this card alone, there's a link in the description below and the cards to my other fully Thalia video, where I just gush and chat about Thalia for 10 minutes. Let's move on. Sorin the Mirthless is a funny magic card. Come on, I am laughing. The Mirthless, it's the most emo fucking card I've ever seen. On top of that, he looks like he is purposefully looking like a fucking character from Twilight or the cover of a romance novel, and I am here for it. We have literal, fucking hell, literal Castlevania artist Sorin, which is incredible. I fucking love it. We have Sorin the Mirthless, where he's just hanging outside on a little smoke break after drinking too much at the wedding, and he's thinking to himself, fuck my life, why am I even here? And Count Dracula Sorin, where he just looks like a character from World of Darkness. If you haven't seen what his abilities are, his +1 is a bob. You look at the top card of your library, you may reveal that card, you may put it into your hand and you lose life equal to its mana value. It's important because it's a bob activation, but you don't have to zap yourself, you get to choose. His -2 creates a Vampire Nighthawk that is missing Death Touch, weirdly. I imagine this had Death Touch at some point in its design cycle, and it just ended up being too good in testing, because they do test for standard and stuff, even if they don't test for older formats. And then -7, Sorin the Mirthless deals 13 damage to any target and you gain 13 life. Whoa! That is a... It's not as good as old Sorin Markov just coming down and reducing someone to 10 life. That was the shit. But it's not a difficult ultimate to get to, considering he ticks up from 4 to 5 to 6 to 3 turns, 4 turns. Actually, I take that back. It's actually going to be very difficult to pull off, and we don't even need to discuss it. 4-mana Planeswalker that protects itself and creates card advantage, I think is reasonable, and we'll see some play in some formats, probably standard. Nowhere more exciting than that. The Saviour of Allenbock, that's right. It's close to Allenbollock. I don't know, Allenbock just sounds like bollock. A bollock being a testicle, by the way. A bollock being a human testes. In England. I don't know if Americans refer to your balls as bollocks. It's a human soldier. It's a 1/2 for 3 mana. It has a new ability from the set called Training. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature that is greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And whenever it trains, so whenever it triggers this, exile to one other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from your graveyard. And when it leaves the battlefield, put exile cards onto the battlefield under its owner's control. This card is fucking nuts. It is a 1/2 for 3, so it can be recruited with either Recruiter the Guard or Imperial Recruiter. I couldn't remember the fucking card name then. It's also a 3-mana creature which fits with where you want your Vial to be in Death and Taxes. It is a human, so it will inevitably be played in some variant of human somewhere. It will train with a larger creature, namely a Flicker Wisp, a Blade Spicer token, even a Thalia triggers the training on this card. They're good in multiples, because the next one is trained by the one that came before that's now bigger. So you got a 2/3/1 from where Thalia attacked with it. Your next one's a 1/2, gets trained by the first one. It exiles creatures on the battlefield. It exiles creatures on the battlefield. It removes things on going to attacks and gets things out of graveyards and then puts them to play under its own control. And by the way, it doesn't say things your opponent controls. This means it can exile things in your graveyard, like, I don't know, a 9/9, not for 9, a Sarah's fucking adversary or whatever it was, any ridiculously powerful high CMC creature, and then bring it back to play. It's a reanimated card and a Fiend Hunter and an aggressive body. Wow. Fuck. I might sound like I'm exaggerating, but I think this card is legitimately... It's so weird in what it does, and it's so powerful, and it is balanced in some ways, though. You have to go to combat, so you don't get any DB effect. They worded that it has to train, it has to use its ability, it's not just putting a counter on it, otherwise that would make it insane alongside Thalia's Lieutenant. And it's a 1/2 for 3, so it's not got an aggressive stat line, even if it's got an aggressive, like, sort of styling to it. Ultimately, I think this card is fucking nuts. I can't wait to try it in some mono-white decks across the formats. Next, we have the age-old question of whether you would take several million or billion dollars and become immortal to be chased by an immortal snail that would kill you upon contact. And the answer is no. Because if the snail gets this fucking big, it's gonna kill you. Next up, we have a card that I could not find in English. It is discard your hand and then draw that many cards. A 4-mana one-sided wheel in the new set. I think this card is interesting in the fact that I think there will be an historic deck. There will be a mono-red Storm deck that's on the cusp of being playable now with Burgee and Runaway Steamkin and shit. Having a 4-mana only wheel yourself? Okay. Now we've got a stew going. By invitation only is our first wedding-themed Wrath in all of Magic the Gathering. If I'm honest, if you'd asked me a year ago, do you think we'll have wedding-themed Wrath of God effects? I would not have believed you or guessed that we would, I guess, to really fit with the question that I asked. Either way, it's pretty wild. It seems like flavorfully there's some sort of spell, the Lurenbaum barrier, that's stopping people from getting into the wedding without an invitation. This would explain why we're going to get Chandra in, like, ball gown. So she's obviously got past the guards because people don't know who she is. She's got an invitation, she's got a dress, she gets through the barrier, and then she starts ripping and tearing. This is a 5-mana, choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. The number is often going to be 13. It's cool because if you have more creatures than your opponent, you can say less. This is a commander card, by the way. But let's say you got 6 or 7 or 8 creatures and everyone else has got 4. You just name 4. It also sacrifices so it gets around indestructible. Yeah, this card is gas. It's not like absolute auto-include Wrath for most decks, in my opinion, because it won't clear out 20 or 30 tokens, for example. But I can see myself playing this in quite a few commander decks. It might just be the best Wrath ever printed for a token deck. Get your bargain basement discount demonic tutors here, my friends. For 3 mana, you exile the top 13 cards of your library, which is a recurring number theme in the set. You get this fucking incredible piece of artwork that I love. And you just search your library for a card and put it into your hand. Essentially, it is 3 mana demonic tutor with a downside of exile on the top 13. In Commander, it's interesting because you might exile the one thing you're looking for, so you've got one more spot removal spell, your Souls to Plowshares, your Path to Exiles, your Damnation to Wrath of Gods, whatever, and then you exile it, you'll be pretty annoyed. You can also exile part of the combo too, but this card is going to be a good, cheap version of demonic tutor. Sigarda Summons is a 6 mana, a 6-mana finisher. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4, flying, and angels in addition to other types. This is essentially a 1 or 2 mana, in this case, more overrun. It's a finisher card, but it is an enchantment, which means that in Limited, for example, you're going to get hit twice by it if you manage to survive the first hit, which you rarely will. I don't know if it's good for Commander, honestly. At 6 mana, it seems very expensive, but I couldn't figure out how cheap I would make it to make it more playable. 4 would be fucking ridiculous. And 5 just makes it kind of on par with Cathar's Crusade. Although this plus Cathar's Crusade over the course of a game will just kill people. It will kill people. It's strong, it's powerful, it's just really... It's a little bit unexciting. I don't know why I'm so unexcited by it. Maybe just swinging with big fat white creatures isn't my jam. I prefer smaller weenies that make other people unable to play the game. Get Rog Monster's long lost brother. I say that without actually knowing if they're even remotely related. But Golnock the Omnivore, maybe it's his son actually. Maybe he gave birth to this man. This is a frog, not a man. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. We have our first frog tribal commander, and I'm frothing at the frog for it. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from the library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among them, which have croak counters on them, basically. Essentially, you're going to mill yourself and create a second hand of croak cards for as long as you control Golnock the Omnivore. This boy eats his veg and his meat. Very cool, very flavorful. Honestly, I kind of wish he was 3 mana for a commander, but I think it's a reasonable and fun 4 mana commander anyway. Angie, Maid of Dishonor. Yeah, Angie's back and she's mad. I thought Angie was actually of like Edgar Markov's time period. I thought she'd be dead or dust or in a crypt by now, but maybe I don't follow the story closely. Saffron Olive joke, this is a Siege Rhino on Twitter because it's a 4 mana 4/5, and it does shoot people for 2 and you gain 2 if you sacrifice another creature or blood token for 2 mana. So it's a 6 mana Siege Rhino. Saffron Olive, come on, behave. But when it does enter the battlefield, or another vampire enters the battlefield, you get a blood token. Blood tokens are a new thing from this set. It's 1 mana, tap, discard a card, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. I think this is very cool and flavorful that there are like blood artifacts at this wedding, you know, goblets of blood that they're drinking. It's a bit fucking weird that they're going to do blood tokens, because that means that's very almost parasitic in a way. Not parasitic that it's self-contained, but parasitic in the sense that you can't really have that in another set and make sense. Treasures and clues have made sense in other sets because people will investigate things in other planes and people will make treasure on other planes, right? That's why those things have become like, you know, present throughout Magic from different planes and different cards. Blood tokens are really only for like vampires and perverts. On the topic of perverts, Dominating Vampire shows us a vampire that is dominate. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Are they being chased by ghosts? Is their dress a ghost? There's blood pouring out of a window. Anyway, it's a 3-mana 3/3. It is able to take control of target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires you control until the end of turn, until that creature gains haste. This is a Zealous Conscript, but you can't steal planeswalkers or lands with it, and there's a huge downside in having to have a number of vampires to get there. This card is perfectly fine as perhaps the top end of some sort of red-black vampire deck in Standard, but other than that, it's very fucking unexciting. Maybe someone will play an EDH. Dig Up is the next card on our spoiler list. It has Cleave. Now, Cleave is a very fucking weird mechanic. The reason I say it's weird is that the word cleave does not denote to me or connote to me what the fuck is going on. Are we cutting parts of the, are we cleaving parts of the text off? Is that what we're doing? Because cleave is like a sweeping action in an RPG. When you like get more attacks but the lower strength so you can clear hordes. I don't fucking know. Dig Up is 1 green mana. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. And for 4 mana, 1 colourless, 2 black and a green, yet to ignore all the square bracket text, which means this card then reads search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. This card is a commander staple for the rest of time. People might be thinking I'm being dumb here. It's not a competitive stable, by the way. I don't think CDH decks will necessarily be playing this, but Dig Up is essentially a layer of the land, much similar to the one that gives energy during Energy Standard. What the fuck's it called? Aether Harvest or some shit. Anyway, it gets your basic land, but then later in the game, it's got a modal mode to allow you to tutor for something. This is perfect for Commander. It is a Wayfarer's Bauble of sorts. Doesn't put it to play though, I guess. But it's a card that digs you up a land when you need it early on, so it's fixing a basic land in hand, but it's also a demonic tutor, or diabolic tutor, should I say, later in the game. It is a low power level EDH staple, and I think people will be playing this in the Green Black decks for years to come. You got to think of the Cleave cards as 2 cards in one. This is on one side layer of the land, on the other side diabolic tutor with a slightly more restricted mana cost. It is that. It's a split card with 2 effects, essentially. There might be more unique versions of this in the future where the cleaving of the text creates a modal or a different way. There's not just 2 different spells with slightly different, similar wording. But at the moment from this one, that's what Cleave is. It's just a split card with a different functionality. But that's not a criticism. Like, a lot of mechanics in Magic the Gathering are just 2 things. And that's not a criticism, by the way. A lot of mechanics in Magic the Gathering are just rebranding or repackaging of old mechanics anyway. There's an argument that everything in Magic is just a rebranded version of Kicker, for example, because most mechanics are. Again, not a value judgment, but more an interesting way to look at how game design works in this space. Wedding announcement, oh yes. If you told me there's going to be multiple cards with the word wedding in the title a year ago, I would not have believed you. Wedding announcement is a weird one. On the front end, it's a 3 mana enchantment. I keep thinking these 2 people are looking at a newborn baby. If you just cover up the invitation and look, it looks like she's shedding a tear. Like they've just got their first baby. I don't know. At the beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on wedding announcement. If you've attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, make a 1/1 white human creature token, not a vampire. Then if wedding announcement has 3 or more invitation counters on it, transform it. And on the back end, it's an anthem. In short, the preparation for the event allows you to gather your resources and gather your humans, that I guess are food for the event. And then when you get there, the whole community comes together, including the humans that you're going to drink, by the way, and you get an anthem. The flavour is weird. I think it's a bit slow. I don't think it'll make much impact in Standard, honestly, unless there's a really strong human payoff. I guess it is card draw in white for attacking. That is something. Commander, I guess, but there's so many different anthem effects out there. But again, it does draw you cards in white, so maybe a mono white token deck might want this. Next up, we have Wedding Invitation. The first, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the first ever rectangular egg. It is a 2 mana artifact that ends the battlefield and draws you a card. I guess eggs normally draw cards on exiting. And then you can sack it to do some shit that no one cares about. Then we have Wedding Ring. 4 mana artifact from the Commander product, by the way, not in the main set, from the Commander product. When it enters the battlefield, if you had cast this, target opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. So you give a wedding ring to yourself and to someone else. Cool and flavorful that you're going to marry someone at the table. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card too. So when the person you have wed, and you've wed them unwillingly, by the way, draws a card, you get one. And the same is to be said for gaining extra life. This is a very cool and flavorful card, and I like it. There is going to be some weirdness. There'll be people who will propose to another boy at the table who's also a boy and be like, no homo, which isn't cool. And there might even be some weirdness about no wedding ringing people at the table and making them feel uncomfortable and being a bit weird. Hopefully none of that comes about. The flavour of it is great. If you think about the non-consensual element of giving the ring to somebody, that is thematic and on point, because it appears that Olivia is marrying Edgar Markov, but Edgar Markov is not in on it. Edgar Markov is apparently charmed or had spells cast on him or whatever. So that makes sense, even if it does make you think that some people are going to be creepy at a magic table. Maybe my opinion of magic players is just too fucking low. And lastly, the bride herself for today is Olivia, Crimson Bride. 6 mana, 3/4 vampire noble. This is some great art. There are multiple versions of this too, similar to Sorry, there's multiple versions of most cards in the set, to be fair. Something I pointed out in my Thalia video is that there is a version of Olivia that is the Sisters of the Undead that I've now been informed is Dracula's wives, apparently. But either way, having one person become 3 in their Godzilla treatment is interesting because it opens the door to all sorts of abstract interpretations of both popular and new Magic cards. In addition to that, the Vampire Frame one looks incredible. I actually think this wedding dress whole thing is fucking wicked. I won't lie to you, when I first found out we're having a vampire wedding, I was not keen. But having a wedding dress where the bridal gown thing is a load of dead spirits all like being pulled along by her is fucking wicked. She has flying, she has haste, she's a fast vampire girl. Whenever Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, return target card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire. Exile this creature. She's bringing corpses back from the dead. She's a new reanimated commander that in some ways reminds me of Big Pig, where you get the thing back and attacking, so you're going to miss your Annihilator clause if you somehow get Annihilator creature. Anyway, the point is, I think this is very, very good. It's at 6 mana and a 3/4, but it does have haste, so the moment you play it, you're going to get to reanimate something unless someone has spot removal to get you right there. Without haste, this card goes from being a cool idea to a bad card that's a cool idea. I think this is a perfectly reasonable commander. I would have liked to see it cost 5 mana, but maybe we're just actually pumping up to 6 to avoid it being too good in standard and other formats like that. In many ways, I look forward to playing this in Cube, honestly. Although, again, at 6, it might be a little bit too dear, but I'm going to look forward to reanimating some shit. And that's my spoiler roundup for today. That's the previews from day 1 of Crimson Vows previews that I thought were exciting and interesting. There won't be any more preview videos from me over the weekend, but on Monday I will round up the whole weekend and I will release my preview video. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, don't forget to share it with your friends and subscribe and all that good shit. If you want to join the Patreons, link to that in the description below as well. And if there's something I missed or misinterpreted or misunderstood, or you just disagree with my assessment of one of the cards, let me know in the comment section below. I do tend to read all my comments against my better judgment. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.